People are always watching, waiting for a crack in your armor, waiting for a moment when your guard drops, waiting for the slightest sign of doubt so they can use it against you. And the truth is harsh. Most of them don't want you strong, they want you breakable. But Thomas Shelby survived because he learned one rule that most men never understand. Never let anyone see what hurts you, what scares you, or what keeps you awake at night. Because once they see your weakness, they stop respecting your strength. Once they see your hesitation, they stop fearing your silence. And once they see your pain, they start aiming right at it. Today, you'll learn how to become the kind of person no one can break. The kind of person Thomas Shelby became. Calm on the surface, fire underneath, and absolutely unreadable. If you want power, if you want control, if you want peace, you must become the one thing they cannot figure out. People are always watching for cracks. Most men walk through life believing nobody notices their struggles. They think their fears are private, their doubts invisible, their insecurities well hidden. But Thomas Shelby understood a truth that the average man refuses to accept. People watch you far more closely than you think, not because they care, but because they're waiting. Waiting for you to slip, waiting for you to break, waiting for a moment of weakness they can turn into an advantage. Every room you walk into, every conversation you have, every silence you break, someone is studying you. They observe the way your eyes shift, the hesitation in your voice, the change in your posture. They see more than you say. And the world isn't kind. The world doesn't forgive weakness. It weaponizes it. Thomas Shelby learned this on battlefields, long before he ever built an empire. A single tremor of the hand, a single look of fear, and a man could lose his life. So he mastered himself, not for glory, not for pride, but for survival. And after the war, the world didn't get any kinder. People still wanted something from him: control, fear, leverage, obedience. So he stayed unreadable. He became hard to read, hard to predict, impossible to break. Because once they see where you're vulnerable, they will push there, not once, every time. And it doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it's the people closest to you, the ones who claim to care, the ones who pretend they're different. But pressure exposes truth. And when the world sees a crack in your armor, even those closest to you begin to lean on it, just to see if it will break. That's why a man must learn to hold his ground without revealing the storms inside him. The people around you don't need to know if you're tired. They don't need to know if you're hurting. They don't need to know if you're unsure. What they see is what they judge. What they see is what they attack. And what they must see is strength, even on the days when you have none left. Because in a world full of watchers, the man with no visible weakness becomes the man no one can control. Showing weakness gives people power over you. A man doesn't lose control all at once. It starts small, a moment of frustration, a crack in the voice, a confession said to the wrong person, an emotion that escapes before you can cage it. And in that single moment, someone sees it. Someone realizes you can be moved, you can be hurt, you can be influenced. Thomas Shelby never allowed that. He learned early that the man who exposes his pain hands the world a map of where to strike. The man who reveals his fear permits others to dominate him. And the man who speaks too openly about what hurts him becomes the easiest target in the room. Because the truth is cruel. People don't forget your weaknesses, they store them. Not everyone will use them immediately. Some will wait, some will pretend to care, some will tuck that information away like a knife hidden in their coat, and they'll use it the moment it benefits them. Your emotions, your struggles, your private doubts, these things are currency, and if you give them away freely, the world will spend them against you. That's why Thomas Shelby learned to speak less, to reveal nothing, to keep his pain locked behind a face that told the world absolutely nothing. He wasn't heartless, he was strategic, because nothing is more dangerous than a man whose enemies don't know where to strike. Once someone knows your soft spot, they will press it. Once someone knows your fear, they will trigger it. Once someone knows your weakness, they will use it to control you. Even the closest people, family, lovers, friends, can turn your vulnerability into leverage. Not always out of malice, but out of instinct. People instinctively push where they know they can get a reaction. And if they can control your reactions, they can control you. So Shelby built walls, not to keep the world out, but to protect the parts of himself that could be used against him. Your strength isn't measured by how loudly you speak it, but by how well you guard what others should never see. Because once the world sees your weakness, they stop treating you like a man and start treating you like a wound. Control your emotions, or they will control you. There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes this truth. If you cannot master your emotions, someone else will. Thomas Shelby understood this better than anyone. He didn't survive by being the strongest, or the fastest, or the loudest. He survived because he refused to let his emotions drag him into decisions that served someone else's purpose. He learned that anger makes you predictable, fear makes you weak, sadness makes you exposed, love makes you vulnerable, and impulsiveness, that's the easiest way to walk straight into someone else's trap. Most men collapse under the weight of their own feelings because they mistake emotion for action. They lash out when they're angry. They freeze when they're afraid. They beg when they're lonely. They break when they're overwhelmed. And every time they do, someone out there, someone watching, learns how to control them. But Shelby, he kept everything inside. He didn't deny emotion, he redirected it. He learned to let anger sharpen him, not blind him. He let fear become calculation. He let pain become discipline. He learned that emotions are like wild horses. If you don't tame them, they'll trample you. When you control your emotions, you control your reactions. When you control your reactions, you control the situation. When you control the situation, you control the outcome. And that's when the world becomes quiet. Because no one can manipulate a man who refuses to be moved. Shelby didn't shout when he was angry, he strategized. He didn't panic. When the walls closed in, he watched. He didn't crumble when life hit him, he stood straighter. Why? Because the man who stays calm is the most dangerous in the room. People fear what they cannot read. They respect what they cannot shake. They obey what they cannot intimidate. Your emotions don't make you human, your control over them makes you powerful. You win battles long before they begin simply by staying steady while everyone else is falling apart. And when others lose their minds, lose their temper, lose their judgment, you remain the one they cannot break. That is why you never let the world see you unravel. Your emotions belong to you, and if you ever hand them over, you've already lost the war. Presence and silence command respect. True power is never loud. True strength is never desperate. And true respect is never demanded. It is claimed silently, like a shadow that stretches farther than the tallest man in the room. Thomas Shelby learned this the hard way. He learned that a man doesn't need to boast to be feared. He doesn't need to shout to be obeyed. All he needs is presence, and the unshakable ability to keep his vulnerabilities hidden. When you reveal nothing, people project onto you. They imagine your strength to be infinite, your patience unbreakable, your intentions unknowable. And the quieter you are, the heavier your presence becomes. Every glance you give, every pause you take, every measured movement becomes a statement not of words, but of power. Shelby's silence carried weight because it was deliberate. He didn't speak to fill the air. He spoke only when the moment demanded it. His presence alone, calm, composed, unreadable, forced people to act differently. They hesitated, they second-guessed themselves. They revealed intentions and weaknesses without knowing it. That is the essence of commanding respect. Not through fear, not through force, but through the quiet certainty that you cannot be manipulated. The world will test you. It will press against your patience. It will look for cracks in your armor, and if it finds one, it will use it against you. But when you have mastered your silence, when you have built a presence that radiates discipline and control, no one dares to strike. No one dares to question, No one dares to assume they understand your limits. Respect is not a transaction. It is earned through consistency, through control, through restraint. It is shown in how you carry yourself when everything around you is chaos. And when you stand tall in the midst of storms, showing nothing, revealing nothing, yet seeing everything that is, when your silence becomes authority. Thomas Shelby doesn't beg for influence. He doesn't plead for obedience. He doesn't explain. He simply is. And because of that, people bend, falter, and yield. If you learn to guard your weaknesses, control your emotions, and carry yourself like a man who cannot be read, you will command respect in ways that no words could ever achieve. Because in the end, the silent, controlled, unbroken man is always the one who rules the room. Conclusion: never let them see your weakness. Most men reveal too much. They speak too freely, show their pain too openly, and hand the world their vulnerabilities without a second thought. And the world, it never forgets. It watches, it waits, it remembers. Every crack, every hesitation, every fear, it becomes a weapon aimed at you the moment they sense opportunity. Thomas Shelby survived because he understood a brutal truth. Weakness is the easiest thing to exploit. Silence is the deadliest shield, and presence is the most commanding weapon. The man who hides his fear, who masters his emotions, who keeps his pain behind an unreadable face, that man cannot be broken. We've learned that people are always watching for cracks. That showing weakness gives others power over you. That control of your emotions creates invincibility. And that presence and silence command respect without ever asking for it. These lessons aren't just theory, they are the blueprint for survival, dominance, and influence. If you reveal your pain, your fear, or your hesitation, the world will take it. But if you master your silence, observe the chaos around you, and act only when necessary, you become untouchable. You don't need to shout. You don't need to explain. You don't need to react. You simply are. And that presence alone bends the world to your will. The man who never lets them see his weakness moves through life like a shadow, calm, calculated, unpredictable. While others fight with words, plead for recognition, or crumble under pressure, he observes, calculates, and strikes only when it matters. He wins not through noise, but through restraint. Not through reaction, but through patience. Not through display, but through mastery. Remember this: your weaknesses are yours to guard, your emotions are yours to control, and your presence is yours to wield. Let the world guess, let them wonder, let them fear. Because in the end, the man who hides nothing but his vulnerabilities and speaks only when necessary always wins the silent war. Thomas Shelby didn't just survive the chaos around him, he commanded it. And you can too. Stay silent, stay strong, stay unbroken. Never let them see your weakness.